WNIS Scott Forehand is with us live from beautiful Edenton, North Carolina via the magic of the interwebs. Mr. Scott Forehand. What's going on over there, man? How you doing?
I'm a little under the weather, so I appreciate you guys helping me do this remotely. And yeah, man, other than that, it's just same old, same old. It's what's happening with the markets, what's happening with the country, what's happening with retirement. And today I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk specifically about this. We talk about it on the show a little bit each time, but I'm going to get a little bit deeper than we usually go, and we're going to talk and focus really about retirement as a whole and annuities in specificity. So, first things first, there is a retirement crisis in this country. And what I mean by that is most people are not prepared for retirement. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to be kind of relying on Social Security, which may or may not be there. There's a reason why the current administration is pushing everybody to have and start at a very young age a 401k. And I do believe 401ks are a tool that people should have, but it is not the only tool that people should have. It is just like anything else. Diversification is the name of the game. You never know if you're for example the pitfalls of the 401k happen when you get close to retirement, because when you get close to retirement and the market tanks like it does consistently every 8 to 12 years, if that happens to be the year that you're planning on retiring, then you can see as much as 30% of your nest egg wiped out, and you don't have time to make it up. So that's why as you get closer to retirement, people should be, again, diversifying their retirement plan by adding in most likely some annuity component to it, and maybe a smart bank piece as well that allows them to have tax exempt income, kind of like a Roth, but without the market oscillation. And that feeds right into this metric, which is really scary. 45% of the country doesn't have any savings for retirement. That's a huge number. And I would say sometimes it's because they thought they had plenty of time to plan, and maybe they weren't taught that way, or their parents didn't teach them that. It doesn't eliminate the why doesn't eliminate the problem. The problem is still there. And the only way you can fix that is to start and start now. Um, Here's a good number. And this is really also scary. The median 401k that people have right now. So if you're talking about any kind of retirement plan, it's like a stool. And you don't see a stool that stands up for very long with one leg. That would be Social Security. You don't see a stool that would stand up for very long with two legs. That would be Social Security and a 401k. The only time you see a stable stool is when you have three legs or more. So where the current metric is 45% of Americans don't have any retirement savings, and the average amount of 401k savings for people between the ages of 55 and 64, that's that window just before retirement. The average savings is only $71,000. That is not enough, and it's not going to last. And that's kind of what this game is. It's not about how much money can you build up. It's how long will the money last, and how do you make it so the money can last longer. And that's why I preface this conversation with a little blip, a little blurb that we're going to be hitting into some annuities things, because that's the gap. That's where you can fix it. That's where you can say, okay, I make $6,000 a month now. On the Friday before I retire, I'm still making $6,000 a month. On the Monday after I've retired, I'm only going to be making $3,000 a month. And that's when I'm going to have to start tapping into these other programs, whether I've got a 401 or a 403 or a KEO, a SEP, a FERS, whatever. And then the other part, the component, that annuity piece, because the annuity piece is something you can bank on, and that's what it's about. It's about stability. It's about the ability to have comfort, knowing that you're going to have enough money for however long you live, as long as the annuity is structured correctly. Here's another interesting metric about why this is so important. We have a rising life expectancy in this country and actually on an international level. People are living longer. So the original retirement plan structure that was developed back in the 1950s, which is still used by most financial advisors these days, it doesn't work anymore. There's too many variables that have come in and crept in and made it so that they don't work with um, the efficacy that we would have expected previously. So since the average life expectancy is now 77 and a half years, back then when that whole program was developed, you were looking at late 60s. We've had a significant increase. It's about 10 years, really. And 10 years on the grand scheme of things doesn't sound like a lot of time, or maybe it does, depending on who you are. But in a financial planning perspective, 10 years is a long time. If the only money that you have in your system is money that you've put away, which is why that number that we go back, the average savings in a 401k is only 71,000. That's why that number is so impactful. It's because it's not going to last long. And if you're going to get 3,000 bucks a month from Social Security because you worked a big job, 100K plus per year, and then you get to the point where you're drawing Social Security, but you're now $3,000 a month short, $71,000 doesn't last long. So that's why some of these funds should be diverted, in my opinion, to these annuity programs where I can say, yes, I am going to have a guaranteed income. It is going to be X. It's going to be that way for the rest of my life. Or sometimes you structure annuities so that we call it a stacking process, annuity stack, where okay, I'm going to have this annuity is going to pay me X for 5 years, and I'm going to have this annuity kick in, it's going to pay me also X for 5 years, and so on. And that's a way that you can take advantage of compounding interest by having one delayed before it starts paying out. And it's a more elegant way to know what kind of income level you're going to have and to plan what kind of income level you're going to have rather than hope your 401k lasts or hope your company doesn't cancel their pension program or hope your company a la Enron didn't invest in a hedge fund that's going to go belly up and cause me to lose my entire life savings. And then I'm going to go, not that there's anything wrong with Walmart, but then I'm going to go off to Walmart and start working as a Walmart greeter just to make ends meet. It doesn't need to be that way. It just takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of focus, and you can get there. All right. So if we're looking at the amount of money that people have, the amount of money people need, that need piece is different for each person. And I would say realistically, as long as you're retiring with a no debt, then realistically you can retire comfortably on somewhere between 50 and 70% of your current income. You can you can skew those numbers by changing the style of income. What does that mean? So if I have a 401k, that the money that's in my 401k is called qualified money, qualified funds. It's tax qualified, which means I don't I don't pay tax on the money when I put it in there. And when I start pulling the money out, I owe tax on whatever I put in there to begin with, as well as any of the growth. That's a tax deferred program. That's a traditional 401k. That's a 403b. All those traditional retirement programs, a 457. Well, what if I know I'm going to be paying tax? What if I manipulate that system so that I can engineer the majority, if not all of, other than Social Security, depending on what state you live in, I manipulate it so that all of my income is tax exempt. And there's only a couple of ways to do that. And People have heard of a Roth IRA, which is great, except for the restrictions of a Roth IRA, like you can't touch money that you put in there if it's been put in less than 5 years. You can't touch it before age 55. Um, and there's a maximum amount of money you can put in there. Those are the primary restrictions on a Roth IRA. Not a bad deal. It grows tax exempt. You pay money. It is a you've paid the money to put into that Roth. You paid tax on it before you put it in there, and it grows tax exempt. It's not a bad deal, but there's a better way. And that's where, again, we go back to this annuity conversation. Why? Why do I keep coming back to the annuity? It's because the annuity is peace of mind. I know exactly how much money I'm going to be receiving, when I'm going to start, and how long it's going to last, if not for the rest of my life. There's not a whole lot of tools that are out there where you can have that kind of certainty. And if you look at the prevalence of mental health issues in this country, we don't need anything to add any more anxiety than we all have as a population. We don't need to continually lay awake at night worrying if we're going to have enough money to retire on. If you ask our population what their biggest concerns are, it's not dying, it's outliving your money. And if you are in a situation where you don't haven't put away enough and you're going to retire in the near term, meaning 4 or 5 years, the tool to use is not going to be something, most likely, that's going to be taxed. You should be looking at a tax exempt solution. And I'm certainly not giving financial advice to anybody in particular at this on the radio, because there's more that has to go into this calculus to make sure we're doing the right thing. But the idea that if I'm going to put money into a taxed program like a 401 or 403, there needs to be a match. That's the only time it would, for me, mathematically, it would make sense to start putting money into those programs. And if the match is 3%, then that's what I should put in. I shouldn't put in 10 to try to play catch up, because if you called it wrong and that extra 7% that you put in there, and all of a sudden you get ready to start drawing it out and the market has a correction and you lose, the majority, 30% of that, you've really done yourself a disservice. So that's why when we get close to retirement, we have to really think about the tools that we're going to use, diversify the tools, create tax exempt programs. Or maybe if you go deeper into, if you're a higher net wealth person, we're going to have different conversations, and we're going to look at some of these tools that we have out there where we can actually eliminate taxes, even on a tax deferred program. And if you're interested in hearing about that, Lee will give our phone number here, and you can certainly call at some point and reach out. We're live. We have staff on there 24 hours, and you can call and get an appointment with us so we can have a conversation.
Talk
Lee,
with a human instead of a robot. Here we are taking care of business with Mr. Scott Forehand. We're talking about your money this hour, the Forehand Agency. You can call them anytime, right? 24/7. You can get a human, not an answering machine. 757-278-1264 if you want to set up an appointment, consultation with Mr. Forehand to talk about your future, your retirement. 757-278-1264 is that number if you're in the Hampton Roads area. If you're outside of the Hampton Roads area, he's got a toll-free number for that. 1-800-677-0989 and the website forehandagency.com. Welcome back to WNIS, Mr. Scott Forehand.
thanks, Lee. And I was just listening to that last spot talking about plumbing and getting your plumbing safe. And man, I tell you what, I wish I had my plumbing safe. I had Mexican 2 nights ago, and it's still not quite right. So, uh,
Happens.
yeah, it happens. All right.
Happens to the best of us.
All right. So now let's jump back in. All right. So let's talk about some more statistics about annuities. Recently, annuity sales have hit an all-time high. Why? It's hit an all-time high because people are concerned that whatever they're doing isn't working, and there's too much variability. Again, that word, variability. There's too much variability in what their plan was. So as a testament to that, $385 billion moved just in 2023 moved from IRAs, 401ks, TSPs, Keosep first, all that moved into annuities because that's how you lock in those gains and you are able to make those plans of how much money you're going to have and how long it's going to last. So people have this incorrect concept about what an annuity really is. So I'm going to boil it all down to you. Here it is, Lee. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Give it to
What's an
me.
annuity? It's a paycheck for life. That's it.
Boom.
That's all it is.
I mean, that
It's
sounds nice.
Yeah, that's all it is. And now you do have to be careful, and I would definitely work with a professional to help you choose because there's thousands of annuities that are out there. But there are three primary kinds of annuities. We have what's called a fixed annuity, which means I give you X number of dollars and you're going to give me X number of dollars. And everything's lined out. We know exactly what it's going to work. We know exactly how much and how long it's going to last for. That's the ultimate of knowing exactly how long your money's going to last. Now, there's a trade-off. A fixed annuity, you're not going to see significant gains. You'll get some kind of level gain, maybe 3%, maybe 4%, and that's about it. It's a very, very, very safe, very conservative investment. And it's again, what are we using it for? For that paycheck per life, for life. The next kind that you hear a lot about, and this is when people are talking and they're really talking about, oh, my annuity lost so much money and blah, that kind of stuff. This is the kind of annuity they're talking about. It's called a variable annuity. Okay, so variable annuities, there's some specifics and some um, licensure requirements for people that are in my industry that you have to be able to offer and recommend those programs to clients. The potential gain with a variable annuity is higher. However, there is also a potential loss. And when we're using the annuity for what it should be used for, which is that paycheck per for life. I don't want any variability in my paycheck. I want to be able to make that plan. I want to know that my money's going to last forever. And that's why, in my opinion, variable annuities are something that should rarely be used because of the variability. It's in the word, it's in the name, because of the variable nature of their return. And the variable can be positive or negative. There's no floor. And then a third kind of annuity, which is my favorite, it's called an indexed annuity. And what that means is you can have some substantial gain based on an index, stock market index. Um, and the idea here is that, yes, I've had my money in my 401k for a long time. I've done very good. My broker did great for me. They managed it well. But now I'm getting ready to retire and I can't afford there to be any losses. But I don't want to completely eliminate the potential for gain. So in an indexed annuity, the gain that you can get is based on a stock market index. What's an index? The S&P 500 is a stock market index. The Russell 2000 is a stock market index. Okay. So these are kind of well-known indexes that you'll see. And you've got large cap and small cap stuff that's out there. And then you've got like BlackRock has indexes, Morningstar, UBS, the Morgan Stanley, all these big companies have indexes that they create to allow you to use in your annuity. All right. Now, one more little caveat about the annuities. There's of the kind that you have, we just talked about those three: fixed annuity, variable annuity, and an indexed annuity. There's also a subdivision of these annuities called immediate versus deferred. So what does that mean? So if I put money into a program and say, all right, Lee, this is what I got. I want it to last for the rest of my life, and I don't want it to start taking money until 5 years from now. Okay, well, that's a deferred annuity. That means I'm deferring the distribution in that particular program until a specific time in the future. And then the other one is an immediate annuity. Hey, Lee, I've got $1 million. I want it to last the rest of my life. I'm going to give it to you. I want an immediate annuity that I can start drawing monthly income or annual income from it today. Okay, that's an immediate annuity. And the obviously the immediate annuities are going to give you immediate access to the funds, but the gain that you're going to get, if any, is suppressed in an immediate annuity. That's not why you do those. All right, couple more things. Um, the there are some like I don't call them dirty secrets, but they are what they are within an annuity. The people that would normally offer these annuities to you, the companies, and they're big companies, and you've all heard the names, and there's lots of companies out there that have these annuities, okay? But they don't do it for their health. They do it to make money. And the way that they make money is they take your money and they invest it. So even though you may say, or I might say, all right, Lee, I want to put my money in this annuity and I want it to be indexed to the S&P 500. Okay. That doesn't mean that Lee's going to invest it in the S&P 500. That's not what that means. That all that means is that when the time comes for a gain to be posted to my account, they will reference the S&P 500 on the day the program started and 1 year later. So that's a standard index called a 1 year point to point. And in that example, I'm going to get whatever gain the S&P did based on how much money I have. They are going to make more money with your money than they're paying you, folks. Okay? And that there's lots of tools that they use to manipulate how much they're actually going to add. But again, why are we doing this? We're doing this so we can have safe gain, no loss, and a permanent paycheck. That's the idea, or at least a paycheck for a period of time if that's part of our strategy. All right. Couple more things. I want to dispel two primary myths that people have about annuities. The first one, primary myth, is that annuities are only for wealthy people. No, 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 no. They are for anybody. If you've got 25, really in some cases $20,000 or more, and you want it to make it last, if you give it enough time for compounding, realistically, I can turn $20,000 into a couple of 100,000 if you give me 20 years. And then that will further, create income streams for the rest of your life. So you don't have to have a lot of money to start one. You just need to get started. And the second thing that most people think of, well, when I do an annuity, I lose control of my money. Nope. It is still your money. And if you need to get to it, you can get to it. And if you need all of it, you can get all of it. Now, there are going to be restrictions. Again, this is how these companies protect themselves. There's a thing called a surrender fee or a surrender penalty. So when you give them the money, you're saying, I'm going to give you my money for X number of years. And then they do their calculations and they figure out how much money they're going to be able to make with your money. And then you choose the index, which determines how much they're going to pay you of whatever they make. And then that's the end of that calculation. If you stop mid-contract, let's say you write an annuity for 10 years and you try to take all the money out in 5 years, they will give you your money. However, there will be a penalty. And it's usually at a 5 year clip that's going to be somewhere between probably 4 and 7% is what they're going to keep as a penalty. So those two myths, I lose control of my money and that annuities are only for wealthy people, are exactly that. They are myths. You don't lose control and they're not just for wealthy people. And here's the cool thing. Using these as a tool, not the tool, but a tool for you to plan your retirement, using these as a tool, you don't have to make a lot of money to have a solid retirement. It is very common for people that I work with that start early enough for you to be making more money during retirement than you're making before retirement. I have a young gentleman who lives in Franklin, Virginia, and I've been working with him for a couple of years. And when he retires, he's going to get about a $15,000 per year raise. And that raise is going to go up $8,000 every year for the rest of his life. So 10 years from now, he'll be making $95,000 more per year. than he's making now before he retires. So if you structure it right and you plan it out right, you can have these big programs that are going to really provide permanent wealth, really. And not to mention, oh yeah, one other interesting thing about that client, we're never touching the nest egg. That's what's really cool. We're using scheduled and guaranteed gains to create this massive growth. And when he passes, all the money that he put in now is still going to be there. And that's going to be legacy for his family, for his kids, and for his grandkids. All right. So let's talk about, again, getting back into retirement, and why we're talking about annuities. We're talking about risk. Okay. I'm going to run out of money. I'm gonna because I'm living longer, I'm gonna live beyond my means, beyond what I've put out there. I've got my money in a 401 or a 403, and I've got some market risk that I don't know how to control. I don't know what inflation's going to be. These are the primary risks to retirement. Longevity risk, you live too long. Market risk, the market doesn't perform the way that we want it to, need it to, or really have to have it perform. And then finally, inflation, which is always that, you've got some people in the Fed, and some people say they know what they're doing and some people don't. And it depends. I'm not trying to get political here, but nobody knows. Nobody knows what inflation's going to be. And, certainly back in the 1930s and 20s when the Weimar Republic in Germany was in power, of course, nobody thought inflation was going to be what it was there. And then, you're talking about 1,000% increase in the cost of a loaf of bread overnight is the kind of inflation they were seeing. So I don't think it's ever going to get that way in this country, but this is the thing. It's a variable that we can't control and we don't know. Specifically, inflation has averaged 3.5% per year over the last 100 years. The target for the Fed is 3%. And if you think about that, what does that really mean? And this, again, this goes back to retirement planning, looking at how your money is going to last. A loaf of bread is not going to cost the same thing next year that it costs this year. A gallon of gas is not going to cost the same next year that it costs this year. Prices go up. That's inflation. And if your income plan is to produce an income stream of $1,000 a month, every month for the rest of your life, that's certainly an attainable goal. But the problem is 10 years from now, that $1,000 a month, it doesn't buy as much. It buys at least 30% less. So that's part of this calculus. When you're doing this, you really have to take into consideration the degradation of the value of money, which is caused by inflation. And one last piece on this. If we're really having a frank conversation with people that are getting close to retirement, part of that conversation comes from talking to people that are in retirement, people that are already there, and looking at what they wish they'd done differently, looking at plans they thought about but really never executed. What and really getting their quote unquote wish list of what I could have done, should have done, and what do I really miss? What did I really not do? What did I really, miss the boat on? And this is the one thing about 70% of them say. They say they miss having a predictable income. And so again, going back to this notion of how do I get to a predictable income? You're not going to get it by being invested in the stock market. You're not going to get it by having all of your eggs in one basket in the real estate market. Anybody ever seen a house that owns real estate? Everybody seen a house that didn't get rented? Okay. So these are not predictable income streams. If you have a large enough population, if you've got, let's say, going back to the real estate conversation, maybe you've got 40 homes or 40 units of property. Well, that's more predictable than having three. Okay. So this is, the law of large numbers is going to level things out for you. But the idea, talking to people that are already retired, their biggest regret, their biggest return is that they didn't spend enough time working on predictable income streams, something where I can make my plan. I know that I'm going to have enough money because my plan says I'm going to have enough money, even with inflation factored in. Okay. So how does this work? What does it really mean? And so I'm going to give a couple of examples when we're talking about, we talked about different kinds of annuities. We talked about an immediate annuity. We talked about a deferred annuity. We talked about variable. We talked about fixed. We talked about indexed. So here's an example. And this is actually a client of mine that I was working with about 2 years ago now. And this is what we did for her. When we did her analysis of her income, her current income, and what it was going to be on the Friday before she retired versus what it was going to be on the Friday after she retired, we found a gap. And that gap was about $1,000 a month. So all we did was we put her money into a deferred annuity. So deferred meaning that we're going to be able to take the money starting at some point in the future. And we made that point in the future coincide with what her current situation was. She was going to retire in 2 years. So we deferred the income from the program for 2 years. And we created a permanent income stream that will, for her, whether she lives to 85, 95, or 105, it will last the rest of her life. And we made up that $1,000 a month with a 3% per year increase. It cost her $200,000. She had 490 in her 403B. She's a school teacher. So all we did was move $200,000 into that deferred annuity with the guaranteed income stream and the growth every year. And now she's set. And she still has the rest of her money in her 403 that she can do whatever she wants to do with. So this is what I'm talking about, folks. You have to know where you are. You have to plan for it effectively. Annuities should be part of that, but the right kind of annuity, not the variable kind, the kind that where you can bank on it, where you know, okay, I'm going to have X amount of dollars. And there you go. Lee, we're
There it
all
is.
about it at the end, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we are rapidly running out of time. Mr. Scott Forehand joins us at least once a month, right, on News Talk 790 WNIS. So we'll be hearing from you next month.
Yep.
And in the meantime, visit the website, which is forehandagency.com. And those phone numbers, if you're in Hampton Roads, 757-278-1264. Give them a call, set up a time to meet with them and talk about your future. 757-278-1264. Or if you're outside of Hampton Roads, toll free 1-800-677-0989. Mr. Forehand?
Yeah, I got one real quick thing. Usually, we have a debt-free life for infinite banking or smart banking class on the Thursday following shows. This week coming up, we have a special class. It's called an annuity workshop. So if anybody wants to attend that, just reach out to those phone numbers and you'll get an invite. It's going to be on Zoom and we're going to be talking all things annuities.
Nice. Once again, those numbers 757-278-1264 or 1-800-677-0989. Scott, always good to talk to you, buddy.
Same to you, sir. Have a great day.
We're News Talk.